The Legend of the Dragon Gate, The Carp Who Refused an Ordinary Life. An original retelling inspired by the traditional Chinese legend, by Nicholas Rosa. Far below the Dragon Gate waterfall, deep within a winding river, lived a young carp who could never accept an ordinary life. While the other fish drifted peacefully through the river, satisfied with eating, swimming, and resting beneath the reeds, the young carp constantly searched for excitement. He raced his friends through the strongest currents. He leaped high above the water to see who could jump the farthest. He challenged larger fish simply to test his own strength. At first, the other carp enjoyed his games, but over time, they grew tired of him. "Why are you always trying so hard?" they would ask. "This river is our home," another carp would say. "Relax, eat, swim, be grateful." But the young carp could not ignore the feeling deep within his heart. There had to be more to life than drifting through the same waters forever. Sometimes, late at night, he would stare towards the distant mountains where a massive waterfall thundered against the cliffs. At its peak stood the legendary Dragon Gate. The old stories claimed that any carp strong enough to climb the waterfall and leap through the gate would transform into a mighty dragon. Most fish laughed at the tale. One afternoon, after the young carp finished another race through the river, a group of older carp mocked him. "If you love challenges so much," one sneered, "why don't you climb up the waterfall and become a dragon?" The other fish burst into laughter, but the young carp did not laugh. Instead, he turned towards the distant waterfall and whispered, "Maybe I will." Far above the clouds, hidden within the heavens, the gods watched him with curious smiles. "This one's different," one of them murmured. The next morning, the young carp announced his decision to the river. "I am going to climb the Dragon Gate waterfall." The river erupted with laughter and disbelief. "You'll be swept away. You're just a fish. You'll hurt yourself." Yet a few of the carp who had once raced beside him swam forward proudly. "If you're going," one said, "then we're going too." Together they began the climb. The waterfall was far more dangerous than any of them had imagined. The current crashed against them with terrifying force. Jagged rocks jutted from the cliffs, scraping their scales and throwing them backward into the raging river below. Again and again, the carp leapt upward. Again and again, they fell. Days passed, then weeks, then months. Many carp gave up. "This is impossible," they said. Some returned to the safety of the river below. Others grew bitter and jealous. Whenever the young carp swam past them, they tugged at his fins and dragged him downward. "If we cannot succeed," they shouted, "then neither can you." Still, the young carp continued climbing. And over time, something began to change. His scales grew thicker and stronger. His body became larger. The powerful current that had once overwhelmed him no longer pushed him backward so easily. Even the sharp rocks that once tore his scales apart now barely scratched him. Eventually, the young carp climbed past the raging current and the jagged cliffs that had stopped so many others. The gods watched carefully from the heavens. "Well done, little carp," one god said. "But let us see how you handle this." Dark clouds gathered above the mountain. Heavy rain crashed against the waterfall. Fierce winds howled through the cliffs, pushing the carp backward whenever he climbed. Now every step upward became even more dangerous. But the young carp refused to stop. Weeks passed, months passed, years passed. The endless storm slowly strengthened him. His whiskers grew longer. His body stretched and became more powerful. His movements through the water became swift and graceful. At last, even the rain and the wind could no longer stop him. The carp pushed through the storm and climbed even higher until he reached nearly halfway to the Dragon Gate. Some of the gods began cheering for him. "He may truly succeed," they whispered excitedly. But other gods grew worried. "A dragon cannot be allowed to rise so easily," one warned. So the fearful gods whispered through the mountain winds. Their whispers reached the ears of the monkeys who lived among the cliffs. "Stop the carp," the winds hissed. The monkey screeched and began hurling stones down at him. The rock slammed against the carp again and again, knocking him deep into the rushing waters below. Still, he climbed. Days passed, Months passed, years passed, and once again the carp grew stronger. His scales hardened like shining armor. His body grew longer and more powerful. He no longer looked like the small fish who once raced through the quiet river below. He looked almost draconic. Soon, the rocks thrown by the monkey simply bounced harmlessly from his scales. His movements through the water became so fast and agile that he could dodge many of the stones entirely. The monkey screamed in frustration. Thunder cracked across the heavens as the fearful gods watched the carp continue climbing higher and higher. Nothing could stop him now. Not the current, not the jagged rocks, not the rain, not the wind, not even the stones thrown from the cliffs above. At last, after years of struggle, the carp reached the peak of the waterfall. There stood the Dragon Gate. For a moment, the carp simply floated there, staring at the sky above him. He had done it. Every bruise, every failure, every painful climb, every voice that told him to give up, he had overcome them all. With pride filling his heart, the mighty carp gathered all his strength and leapt high into the heavens, just as he had done long ago as a young fish racing joyfully through the river. A brilliant golden light burst across the sky. The gods cried out in amazement as the carp rose into the clouds. Some gods cheered proudly, others watched in disbelief. The carp's scars vanished. His worn scales transformed into brilliant gold. Great whiskers flowed beside his face as his powerful body transformed into that of a magnificent dragon. At last, he spread his wings and soared effortlessly through the heavens. Far below, the other carp stared upward in silence as the golden dragon flew across the sky. The river became quiet, and deep within their hearts, many of the carp wondered the same painful question. What might they have become if they had never given up? Thank you for listening to The Legend of the Dragon Gate, the carp who refused an ordinary life. To discover more engaging stories and educational resources, please visit the Learning Forge Academy. Thanks for listening and happy reading.